The laughter reached Nora Reed before the spilled wine did. "She's only a maid," Mrs. Vale said, loud enough for half the Copper Basin dining room to hear. "Why would anyone ask what she thinks?" Across the room, Caleb Warren stopped speaking to a rancher and walked straight toward her. Nora was on one knee beside the supper table, pressing a folded cloth against a dark stain spreading across the floorboards. The annual stockman's supper had filled the hotel with cattlemen, merchants, county officers, and women in their best summer dresses. The room smelled of roast beef, lamp oil, starch, and dust. Nora had been working since before sunrise. She knew which guest rooms had leaking basins when the laundry tubs filled, and how long the upstairs water pressure took to recover each morning. Mrs. Vale had been blaming the hotel for Red Mesa's shrinking ditch supply. Nora had made the mistake of saying the upstairs pipes went weak before the laundry valves opened. Mrs. Vale laughed. Then, Caleb started walking. Conversation thinned as he crossed the room. He was 36, sun-browned, broad-shouldered, and dressed more plainly than several men who owned half as much land. Warren Ranch lay north of town and carried enough cattle that people listened when Caleb spoke. 3 families had spent the evening finding reasons to introduce daughters to him. He passed all of them. He stopped beside Nora. "You said the pressure drops before the laundry starts?" Nora stood. "Yes," Mrs. Vale gave a tight smile. "Mr. Warren, she carries linens. She doesn't manage the ditch." "No," Nora said. "I carry water too." Caleb looked at her. "What time?" "Most mornings 20 minutes before 6. That's impossible." Nora folded the stained cloth. "Then, the pipes have learned poor manners." His mouth moved toward a smile. A fiddle started near the far wall. Caleb glanced toward the musicians. "When does your shift end?" 10. "The final dance starts at 10. "So I've heard." "Dance it with me." The nearest conversation stopped. Nora looked past him at a young woman in yellow silk who had been introduced to Caleb twice. "One dance does not purchase gratitude, Mr. Warren. I wasn't offering to buy any. And it doesn't buy agreement. I expect I can survive that." Nora held his gaze. "Ask me at 10. She walked away carrying the stained cloth. At 9:58, Nora was rinsing wine from her fingers when Elsie Dunn appeared in the service doorway. "He's waiting." Nora dried her hands. Her gray work dress remained plain, her dark hair pinned tightly behind her head. She removed her apron because her shift had ended, not because Caleb Warren was waiting. He stood near the dining room doors with his hat in one hand. People were watching again. He offered his hand. She took it. Caleb was not a graceful dancer, but he knew the steps and kept a respectful distance. "You made Mrs. Vale angry," he said. "She arrived that way." He nearly smiled. "You're certain about the water pressure?" Nora stared at him. "You asked me to dance so you could question me about pipes?" "I asked because I wanted to dance with you." "I'm asking about the pipes because I want to know about the pipes. That may be the least romantic answer ever given here. Probably why I'm unmarried." The fiddle slowed. Nora said, "The laundry foreman opens our main valve at 6:15. The upstairs pitchers start slowing before 6, sometimes 5:40, sometimes 5:45. Caleb's expression sharpened. "The North Ranch diversions aren't scheduled until 6:30. "I didn't say anything about ranch diversions." "No, you didn't." The dance ended. He released her hand immediately. "Tomorrow morning," he said. "Would you show me?" "I begin at 5. I'll be here. You own a ranch. You have men who inspect ditches. I do. And if what I show you becomes inconvenient?" Caleb paused. Nora had watched wealthy people decide that a servant's answer stopped mattering the moment it became unpleasant. "Then, it's inconvenient," he said. "That isn't what I asked." No, he said. It isn't. The next morning, he arrived at 4:53. Nora found him outside the kitchen entrance while collecting 2 empty buckets. You're early. You said 5. She handed him 1 bucket. He looked at it. If you're coming, you can carry something. He followed her upstairs. At the second-floor washroom, Nora fitted a worn brass key onto the valve beside the cistern. Listen, water rushed through the pipe. Then it knocked once. The stream weakened. Caleb checked his pocket watch. 5:41. Nora filled 1 bucket halfway. That's earlier than yesterday. How often? 3 mornings this week. Could the hotel be drawing somewhere else? Kitchen hasn't started. Laundry is shut. Guest basins feed from the upper tank. You know the whole system? I work in the whole system. Caleb said nothing. At 6:15, the laundry valve opened downstairs. The pressure dropped again. Caleb watched the stream narrow, then checked his watch. The official ditch board says the first north diversion opens at 6:30. So something is taking water before the schedule says it should. Nora picked up the full bucket. Caleb reached for it. She shifted it away. I've carried it every day for 6 years. I wasn't questioning your ability. Good. He took the empty bucket instead. At the kitchen door, Nora stopped. My break is 20 minutes at noon. I work until 10. I'm not asking you to leave your job. Good. I'll check the north ditch myself. And if I'm wrong, I'll tell you. And if I'm right? Caleb looked toward the brightening street. The county water hearing was 9 days away. Tomorrow, he said, show me everything you've noticed. Nora rested the brass water key in her palm. I will. But if the truth costs Warren Ranch water, I'm not changing it for you. Caleb gave one short nod. That, he said, is exactly why I'm asking you. At 5 the next morning, Nora Reed was already halfway through the second-floor pitcher route when Caleb Warren appeared at the service entrance carrying a notebook he had borrowed from the hotel desk. You're late, she said. He checked his watch. By 2 minutes. That is late. He nodded once. Fair. Nora handed him an empty bucket. They began with the upper cistern, then moved through the kitchen line, laundry feed, and the narrow pipe that supplied 6 guest rooms along the west hall. Nora did not change her routine for him. She made beds, replaced towels, carried wash water, emptied basins, and stopped only long enough to call out times. 5:37. Second floor weakening. Caleb wrote it down. 5:49. Kitchen still normal. He wrote that down too. At 6:14, the laundry foreman pulled the main handle. The pipes shuddered. Nora listened. Now, Caleb checked his watch. 6:14. They repeated the process the next morning. Then again. The pattern moved by only a few minutes. Something upstream was drawing water before Red Mesa's posted schedule said it should. By the 3rd morning, Caleb stopped questioning whether Nora had noticed correctly. He started asking where the water went. They met during her noon break behind the hotel, where a narrow irrigation channel passed beneath a wooden footbridge. Nora sat on an overturned crate and opened the small book she used for her clerk studies. Caleb looked at the pages. You're studying county forms? Land descriptions, tax rolls, filing procedure. Why? I intend to take the assistant clerk examination. He looked genuinely surprised. Nora noticed. You thought I planned to carry sheets until I was 70? No, you looked surprised. I'm surprised nobody told me. Why would anybody tell you? That stopped him. Nora turned another page. The examination is in 6 weeks. I've been studying since February. You'll pass. You have no evidence for that. I've watched you remember water pressure to the minute. That proves I can count. It proves more than that. Nora closed the book. I don't need encouragement from a rancher who met me 4 days ago. Then, I'll save it. She studied him for a moment. He actually did. That afternoon, Caleb rode north along the ditch. The official rotation board outside the county office showed the same thing Nora had already told him. The northern ranch branches were not supposed to open until 6:30. But along the main ditch, he found damp gate timbers before the scheduled hour. Someone had been moving water early. By evening, he had checked 3 ranch branches. 2 matched the posted schedule. 1 did not. The irregular branch ran farther north, toward Warren land. The next morning, Caleb did not wait for Nora to ask. He stood at the kitchen door at 5. We need to follow the ditch. I'm working. I know. My break is at noon. I'll wait. At noon, they walked east from the hotel beneath a hard white sun. Red Mesa sat between dry ridges where every green thing existed because somebody had moved water toward it. The ditch ran past cottonwoods, workshops, vegetable patches, and finally the first grazing lots beyond town. Nora wore her gray work dress, with her sleeves rolled above her wrists. The brass water key remained hooked at her belt. Caleb carried her study book because she had needed both hands to climb the ditch bank, and he had taken it without making a ceremony of helping. You're quieter today, she said. I found an early gate. Which one? He pointed north. Nora stopped walking. Yours? Possibly. That sounds like a word men use when they already know the answer. Caleb looked at her. Yes, they continued. The branch widened near a stand of cottonwoods. Water moved through a weathered wooden gate and turned north across open range. Caleb crouched beside the mechanism. The lower boards were dark with recent flow. This gate has been opened before schedule, he said. By your men? I don't know. You should. Yes, there was no excuse in his voice. That unsettled Nora more than an argument might have. They followed the branch another quarter mile. Beyond a low rise, the land opened into one of Warren Ranch's northern pastures. Cattle stood beneath the cottonwoods beside a long watering trench. The trench was full. Nora stopped. Caleb stopped beside her. For several seconds, neither spoke. Then, Nora said, that water reaches your cattle before it reaches half the town. It appears so. Appears? He looked toward the pasture. It does. Nora folded her arms. How long? I don't know yet. And you expect me to believe that? I expect you to decide after I check. You own the ranch. I inherited the ranch. That doesn't mean I know every practice my father left behind. That answer would sound very convenient at a hearing. His face hardened slightly. Then don't repeat it, unless you believe it. Nora stared at him. That was not the response she had expected. Most people wanted trust before they had earned it. Caleb seemed willing to wait. They returned toward town in silence. Halfway back, a black carriage stood beside the ditch road. A man in a cream-colored coat leaned against it, one hand resting over the silver head of a walking stick. Caleb slowed. Silas Vane. The man smiled before they reached him. Warren. His eyes moved to Nora. And Miss Reed, I assume. Nora did not like that he already knew her name. Vane tapped the walking stick once against his boot. I hear you've taken an interest in irrigation. I take an interest in water when it stops coming out of hotel pipes. Vane smiled wider. Practical. He turned to Caleb. The county hearing is 8 days away. The syndicate has already prepared a stable allocation proposal. You would be wise not to create confusion over a few imprecise observations. Caleb's voice stayed level. They're not imprecise. Vane's smile thinned. You're willing to put Warren Water at risk because a hotel maid owns a watch? Nora answered before Caleb could. No. Vane looked at her. I don't own a watch. Caleb almost smiled. Vane did not. I'm offering you friendly advice, he said to Caleb. Some arrangements work because sensible men understand when not to inspect them too closely. Caleb's gaze shifted toward the north branch. Then, back to Vane. That isn't an argument for keeping one. Vane tapped the stick against his boot again. One day you may discover principles make poor cattle feed. He climbed into the carriage. Dust followed him down the road. Nora watched until he disappeared. Then she looked at Caleb. You knew he would care. I suspected. You also knew the syndicate proposal protects your ranch. Yes, Nora turned toward the northern branch. Water continued sliding through the wooden gate toward Warren pasture. Her expression changed. Not anger. Calculation. She stepped closer to the ditch, watched the current, then looked toward the line of cottonwoods, marking Caleb's land. That one is yours, she said. Caleb did not answer. He did not need to. By noon, Caleb had the answer he had not wanted. The northern diversion belonged to Warren Ranch. Not by secret agreement or forged paper. It was simply an old practice that had continued because nobody with power had asked whether it still matched the county rotation. Caleb stood in the ranch office with 3 years of gate logs spread across his desk. His foreman, Luke Barrett, waited near the door. My father used that branch? Caleb asked. Luke nodded. Before you took over. We always opened it before first light in summer. Why? The north pasture dries fastest. That wasn't my question. Luke looked at the floorboards. Because nobody stopped us. Caleb closed the ledger. That afternoon, he rode back to Red Mesa. Nora was in the hotel laundry room counting clean sheets into stacks of 12. He waited until she finished. You were right. She set the last sheet down. How long? Years, did you know? No. Would you have asked if the hotel pipes hadn't bothered you? Caleb did not answer immediately. No. She gave one short nod. The commissioners need to know. They will. And if they reduce your water, they reduce it. You say that easily. I doubt I'll do it easily. Nora studied his face, then reached for the next stack of sheets without sending him away. The county hearing opened 2 days later. Every chair in the meeting room filled before 10. Ranchers stood along the rear wall. Merchants crowded the windows. Silas Vane sat at the front table with 3 syndicate representatives, his silver-headed walking stick across his knees. Caleb took a seat along the side wall. Nora sat near the commissioner's desk in her plain gray dress, the brass hotel water key hanging from her belt. Commissioner Hale called her name just before noon. Nora Reed. She stood. Vane leaned toward one of his men. Here comes the water expert. Nora walked to the front. Hale adjusted his spectacles. Miss Reed, what is your occupation? Maid at the Copper Basin Hotel. A murmur moved through the room. Vane tapped his walking stick against his boot. Do you have training in irrigation? No surveying? No. Then what exactly are you qualified to tell this commission? Caleb shifted in his chair. Nora did not look at him. I can tell you when water reaches the hotel. Vane smiled. Nothing more? Nothing I can prove. The smile disappeared. Nora placed a folded sheet of paper on the desk. For 23 mornings, I recorded when our second floor pressure weakened, when the kitchen line weakened, and when the laundry valve opened. The first pressure loss happened before our laundry draw on 19 mornings. Hale looked down. You recorded this before the dispute? Most of it. Why? I count things. I was studying clerical work and wanted practice keeping regular records. I didn't know the times mattered. Hale turned toward Caleb. Mr. Warren, do you dispute her times? No. Do you dispute that your northern diversion was opened before schedule? No. Several ranchers turned toward Caleb. By mid-afternoon, records from other properties showed smaller timing differences, but none matched the Warren branch. Caleb's ranch was the largest beneficiary. During a recess, Nora stood beneath the awning outside the county office. Caleb joined her. "You should eat. So should you. I had coffee. That is not food." Before he could answer, Silas Vane stepped through the doorway. "Warren, a word. You can say it here." Vane looked at Nora. "I would prefer not to." "I wouldn't." The walking stick struck the porch board once. "The syndicate proposal protects your north pasture." "I know. It protects merchant accounts tied to your cattle shipments, too." "I know that. Then stop helping them dismantle it." "No." Vane's eyes narrowed. "You're risking a season's grazing over the observations of a hotel servant." "No, I'm risking a season's grazing because the water isn't mine. The allocation has stood for years. That doesn't make it fair. It makes it workable. For me." Vane stared at him. "You think fairness will move cattle?" "No. Men will. If I lose water, I move part of the herd early. That costs money." "Yes." Vane looked at Nora. "You understand what happens if this ranch loses contracts because of you?" Nora faced him. "If a ranch loses a contract because I told the truth about when a pipe went dry, the contract had a larger problem than me." The recess ended. By 5, the commissioners had heard enough conflicting claims to refuse a paper decision. Hale stood. "We will conduct a controlled flow test tomorrow morning." The room quieted. All disputed gates remain visible. Town and ranch draws proceed at their normal times. Commissioners will measure the headgate before sunrise and through the first hour of use. Vane leaned forward. "Tomorrow? Sunrise." Hale looked around the room. "If any party alters its normal schedule, the commission will treat that as interference." Outside, orange light lay across the adobe walls. Nora and Caleb walked toward the hotel. Halfway there, she saw Vane speaking with 2 merchants beside the feed store. One man looked toward her and quickly away. Nora stopped. "What?" Caleb asked. She watched Vane tap the silver head of his stick against his boot. "He's going to change something." "You know that?" "No." She looked toward the hotel and then toward the ditch road. "But if businesses delay their normal morning draw, the test won't show a normal morning." "How many businesses matter? Hotel, bakery, livery, laundry, probably the slaughter yard. And how many trust Vane?" Enough. The sun dropped behind the western ridge. The official test would begin at sunrise. Nora looked at Caleb. "We have one night to make sure tomorrow looks like an ordinary morning." Nora spent the night doing something Silas Vane had not expected. She asked people to behave normally. At the bakery, she told Mrs. Kessler to start her ovens and draw water at the usual hour. At the livery, she told Ben Carter not to delay filling the troughs. At the slaughter yard, she spoke to the night foreman. "I'm not asking you to help me prove anything," she said. "Just do tomorrow exactly the way you did yesterday." By 11, Caleb had ridden north to Warren Ranch. Luke Barrett met him at the stable. "The commissioners want the north gate visible before sunrise," Caleb said. Luke nodded. "Leave it closed." Luke frowned. "Completely?" "Until they tell us otherwise. The north trough will fall by midday. I know. We've got nearly 80 head up there. Start preparing the lower pasture." Luke looked toward the dark range. "That move will cost us." "Yes." Luke waited for an explanation. Caleb gave him none. By 4:45, lanterns dotted the Red Mesa headgate. Commissioner Hale stood beside 2 measuring rods driven into the channel. Ranchers gathered along the bank while hotel workers, merchants, and 3 syndicate men watched from farther back. Nora arrived carrying the brass water key. Silas Vane was already there. His walking stick touched the ground once. "You've made quite an event of this." "No," Nora said. "The county did." The eastern sky began turning gray. Hale checked his watch. "Warren Gate?" "Closed," Caleb said. Hale sent a deputy upstream to confirm. A few minutes later, the man returned. Closed and secured. Silas looked at Caleb. You realize what you're volunteering? Caleb rolled his sleeves. I'm not volunteering anything. I'm following the test. At 5:10, the hotel kitchen opened its normal line. Nora watched the measuring marks. The level dipped. At 5:23, the bakery began drawing. Another small drop. At 5:37, Nora opened the upper hotel valve with her brass key. Water moved through the pipe beside the headgate station. Hale recorded the change. Everything matched the pattern Nora had described. Then, at 5:48, the water unexpectedly strengthened. Nora looked upstream. That's wrong. Silas folded his hands over his walking stick. Or your observations were wrong. Nora ignored him. She looked toward the row of businesses beyond the ditch. The livery trough should already have been filling. No stable boy stood at the valve. The slaughter yard draw had not begun either. Nora turned to Ben Carter. What time do you fill the east trough? 5:45. It's nearly 10 till. Ben rubbed the back of his neck. Mr. Vane said the commissioners preferred us to wait until after the first measurement. Hale looked up sharply. I said no such thing. The bank went quiet. Silas's stick stopped moving. Hale faced the slaughter yard foreman. You too? The man hesitated. He said delaying a few minutes would keep things orderly. Silas lifted one hand. I merely suggested reducing unnecessary interference during measurement. Nora stepped beside the marked board. That would not be a normal morning. No one claimed it was required to reproduce every bucket in Red Mesa. The commission did, Hale said. Silas turned toward him. Hale's expression had gone flat. All businesses resumed their normal schedule now. Ben opened the livery line. The slaughter yard foreman signaled his man upstream. Water dropped sharply. Nora watched the mark sink past the level she had recorded during her weakest hotel mornings. Commissioner Hale crouched beside the board. One of the other commissioners checked the second gauge. Neither spoke for almost a minute. Then, Hale stood. Open the Warren North Gate. Caleb nodded to Luke. The gate rose. Water pulled hard toward the northern branch. The main channel level fell again. The answer stood in plain sight. For years, Warren Ranch had been taking an early share large enough to weaken downstream users before the official rotation even began. Silas looked toward Caleb. You can still challenge the procedure. Caleb watched water disappearing toward his pasture. No, you'll lose summer capacity. Yes, you could appeal. I won't. Nora turned toward him. Caleb did not look at her. He was watching the channel. Close my gate, he told Luke. Luke lowered it. The current steadied. By noon, the commissioners issued a temporary revised rotation. Warren Ranch lost part of its early summer allocation. The hotel, livery, bakery, and smaller downstream users received protected morning windows. The syndicate's exclusive proposal was suspended. A week later, after testimony about Silas's attempt to alter the test conditions, the county required future allocation measurements to be publicly recorded. Silas Vane remained the syndicate's agent. He simply stopped being the man Red Mesa trusted to explain its water. Caleb moved 67 cattle to the lower range. 2 contracts had to be renegotiated. He never mentioned the cost to Nora. She noticed anyway. 3 weeks later, Caleb found her outside the county office with a folded examination notice in her hand. Well? Nora handed it to him. He read the first line. You passed first position. His smile arrived completely this time. I had evidence you would. You had optimism. I had 23 mornings of records. That is better evidence. He handed the paper back. Then he said, May I ask you something unrelated to water? That depends. May I court you seriously? Nora looked at him for a long moment. No favors. None. No position arranged through friends. You already earned one. No solving problems I did not ask you to solve. I'll try. She raised an eyebrow. He corrected himself. I'll ask first. Better. She folded the examination notice. Yes, they married the following spring, quietly, after Nora had been working at the county office long enough that nobody could confuse her new life with something Caleb had purchased for her. Months later, a second-hand writing desk arrived for her office. It was heavier than advertised. Caleb took one end. Nora took the other. They reached the doorway, and the desk caught hard against the frame. "Lift your end," Nora said. Caleb lifted. "Turn left." He turned. "Your other left." He corrected. The desk cleared the doorway. Together, they carried it inside. If you enjoy Western stories where respect is proven by choices, subscribe and leave a like.